A billionaire discovered Maid's daughter weeping at a grave. The secret changed him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. In a quiet corner of the sprawling city, amidst towering mansions and the hum of luxury, there was one place that was easily overlooked. Hidden from the eyes of the wealthy and powerful, it was the small graveyard where only a few knew the stories buried deep beneath the earth. It was here, one crisp autumn morning, that billionaire Michael Harrison would come face to face with a truth that would change his life forever. Michael Harrison was a man of wealth and influence. His name was synonymous with success. He had built an empire from nothing, becoming one of the most powerful men in the country. He was known for his sharp business acumen, his unyielding drive, and his ability to control every aspect of his life. Yet, despite his power, there was one thing he had never been able to control: his own heart. Michael had long since buried any sense of empathy deep within himself. He had surrounded himself with the finest things money could buy, but all of it felt hollow. There was no warmth in his grand mansion, no joy in his lavish office, no real connection with those around him. He had become a man who measured success in dollars and power, never in kindness or love. But everything changed when he found himself walking through the cemetery on that fateful morning. He had come to pay respects to a distant relative, one whose name meant little to him, but whose gravestone stood proudly in the cold, silent air. As he made his way through the rows of gravestones, the chill in the air matched the emptiness he often felt inside. It was then that he heard it, the soft sobbing of a young girl. Curious, Michael turned his head and spotted her. She was sitting by a grave, her small body trembling with emotion, her tears falling silently onto the earth. At first, he thought nothing of it. There were always tears at gravesides. But something about this girl, the way she seemed so vulnerable, so lost, struck a chord within him. She looked out of place, like a delicate flower growing in the shadows of the wealthy city. Michael walked closer, the soft crunch of his shoes against the gravel the only sound in the otherwise still air. As he approached, he saw her clearly now, her small face, streaked with tears, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She was dressed simply, her clothes worn and faded, a stark contrast to the designer suits that Michael was so accustomed to. He couldn't help but feel a pang of discomfort. Who was this girl, and why was she so sad? He had seen plenty of people cry in his life, but this girl's tears were different. There was a depth to her sorrow, a weight that seemed to transcend her age. Michael stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. He had never been one to approach strangers, especially not those who were of no consequence to him. But something about her tugged at his heartstrings, something he couldn't ignore. Finally, he spoke. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft but hesitant. The girl looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen from crying. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, in a small voice, she whispered, I'm just so sad." Michael knelt beside her, his curiosity piqued. "Why?" he asked, genuinely wanting to know. The girl hesitated, wiping her eyes before she spoke again. "This is my mother's grave," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She died last year, and I miss her so much." Michael was taken aback. He had never known sorrow like this before. He had lost people in his life, of course, but never like this. This was the kind of loss that cut to the core, the kind that left a person hollow inside. As he listened to the girl's story, he felt something stir within him, a feeling he hadn't felt in years. A sense of compassion, of empathy, that he had buried long ago. He realized, in that moment, that this girl was not just some random stranger. She was someone who had known deep pain, someone who had experienced a loss that would forever shape her life. And for the first time in a long time, Michael wondered if his own life, his own wealth, could ever bring him the kind of peace this girl had lost. What was the cost of true happiness? Could it be found in the things he had worked so hard for? Or was it something more? Michael stayed by the girl's side for a while, listening to her talk about her mother, about how much she missed her, and about the life they had shared before everything changed. As she spoke, Michael couldn't help but feel the weight of her words. For the first time in a long time, he began to question everything he had built. Was it worth it? Was it enough? And just like that, his world, once so carefully constructed, began to crumble. As Michael stood there, his mind raced. The girl beside him, with her tear-streaked face and quiet voice, had unknowingly shattered the rigid walls he had built around himself for years. He was a man who had seen countless faces, shaken thousands of hands, but this child, this young girl, had affected him in a way no one had in a long time. He could feel the weight of her grief, and for a brief moment, it was as though his own heart had cracked open. He had been living in a world of cold transactions, high-rise offices, and luxury that never seemed to satisfy. But now, in the presence of this young girl mourning the loss of her mother, he was beginning to realize that something vital was missing from his own life. The realization hit him harder than any business deal or corporate merger ever had. He had everything money could buy, but in that moment, he saw what he lacked: genuine human connection. The kind of connection that this girl had with her late mother, a bond that even death could not sever. Michael cleared his throat, struggling to find the right words. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. The girl looked at him, her eyes still filled with sadness, but there was something else there now. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even hope. "Thank you," she whispered. "I miss her so much. She was all I had." Michael's heart twisted as he looked at her. He knew what it was like to lose someone, but it had never been this raw, this palpable. He could feel her pain deep within him, and for the first time in years, he felt compelled to do something about it. "If you ever need anything," he said, his words coming out before he could think twice, "I'll be here. You're not alone." The girl blinked in surprise, unsure of what to make of his sudden offer. She wasn't used to kindness from people like him. Most of the people in her life, especially the wealthy ones, had always seen her as invisible. Just another face in the crowd, another servant's child. But there was something different about Michael. His sincerity seemed genuine, his tone soft and caring. She hesitated before speaking again. "I don't need anything from you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just want to feel like someone cares, like someone remembers her." Michael felt a lump form in his throat. The weight of her words hung in the air, and for the first time, he truly understood what she meant. It wasn't about money, it wasn't about status, it was about being seen, being heard, and feeling valued. In that moment, Michael realized how far removed he had become from those basic human needs. He had spent so many years chasing after success and accumulating wealth that he had forgotten what it meant to connect with others on a deeper level. The girl's words lingered in his mind as they both sat there in silence. The wind rustled through the trees, and the soft sounds of nature seemed to provide a moment of calm amid the storm of emotions swirling in his chest. Michael had always believed that success was measured by power and riches. But now, as he sat next to this young girl, he began to question everything he had known. Was all of this worth it? Was his empire truly fulfilling? He looked down at the girl, her eyes still focused on the grave. She was so young, yet so wise in her own way. It was as if she had learned the true meaning of life through her loss, while he had spent his life avoiding the very thing that mattered most. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the cemetery, Michael made a decision. He couldn't change the past, but he could change the future. He would help this girl. He would give her the support and love she needed, not because he owed it to her, but because he had come to realize that sometimes the greatest thing a person can do is simply be there for another. As he stood to leave, he turned to her one last time. "I'll check in on you soon," he promised. "Take care of yourself." The girl nodded, her expression softening. "Thank you," she said quietly. Michael left the cemetery that day with a new sense of purpose. He had come to pay respect to a distant relative, but in doing so, he had found something far more meaningful. He had found a connection that would change the course of his life forever. The days that followed were filled with a sense of quiet transformation for Michael. He could not stop thinking about the young girl and her painful story. He had offered her something so simple, yet it had shaken him in ways he never expected. His life had always been one of constant movement, business deals, endless meetings, and the never-ending chase for success. But now, everything seemed so distant. The bustling city outside his office windows, the conference calls, the paperwork, It all felt hollow in comparison to the raw emotion he had witnessed in that cemetery. For the first time, Michael found himself questioning the very essence of his existence. He had everything anyone could want: wealth, power, influence. But he lacked something that money could not buy: a true sense of connection. The more he thought about the girl, the more he realized how little he knew about the lives of the people around him. How many others like her were suffering in silence, just beneath the surface of the glittering world he inhabited. The more he thought about it, the more he knew he had to do something. He couldn't just walk away and forget about her. Michael had spent years building his empire, but now, it was time to build something more meaningful. He picked up the phone and dialed his assistant. "Arrange a meeting with the girl and her mother," he said. "I want to help them." The next day, Michael found himself standing at the modest apartment building where the girl lived. He had passed by it many times before, but had never given it a second thought. Now, as he looked at the worn-out exterior, he felt a surge of guilt. How many times had he driven past places like this, completely unaware of the lives within? The apartment was small, cramped, and tucked away in a part of the city far removed from the luxury he was accustomed to. Michael climbed the stairs to the second floor and knocked on the door. After a moment, it creaked open, revealing the girl's mother. Her face was tired, etched with the exhaustion of someone who had worked endlessly for years just to get by. Michael felt a pang of sympathy as he introduced himself. "I'm Michael Harrison," he said, extending a hand. "I've met your daughter, and I'd like to help." The woman looked at him, unsure of what to make of his sudden appearance. But something in his eyes made her hesitate, and she allowed him inside. As he sat down, he could see the struggle in her eyes. She was a proud woman, unwilling to accept charity, but her circumstances had left her with little choice. Michael understood. He wasn't here to offer handouts, but rather to offer a chance. A chance for her and her daughter to live a life that wasn't defined by hardship. "I want to provide a scholarship for your daughter," Michael said, his voice steady. "She has potential. She deserves more than this life." The woman's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. "Why would you do this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael paused for a moment before answering. "Because I've seen what you and your daughter have gone through, and I believe that everyone deserves a chance, no matter their background." He could see the skepticism in her eyes, but there was something else too, a flicker of hope. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. Michael promised to take care of the details, arranging for the best schools and resources for the girl. He didn't just want to change her life. He wanted to give her the tools to succeed, to rise above the limitations that had been imposed on her. As he left their apartment that day, Michael felt a shift inside of him. The weight of his past decisions seemed to lighten, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was doing something that truly mattered. The girl had reminded him of the importance of human connection, of love, and of kindness. These were things that no amount of wealth could ever replace. And as he walked away, Michael knew that his life would never be the same again. In the weeks that followed, Michael's decision to help the girl and her mother began to feel like the first step towards something greater. The scholarship was only the beginning, but for Michael, it represented a shift, one he couldn't quite explain. As he watched the girl, whose name was Emma, excel in her studies, he felt a sense of pride he hadn't known before. She was thriving, and every small victory, every achievement, felt like a personal triumph for him as well. But it wasn't just her success that mattered. It was the way her presence had begun to change him. Slowly, Michael found himself spending more time with Emma and her mother, Abigail. He'd visit their modest apartment, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to. He didn't know why, but he was drawn to their world, one that was so different from the one he had built for himself. It was in these moments, sitting around their worn kitchen table, listening to Emma talk about her dreams, that Michael started to understand something profound. He had spent his life pursuing wealth and status, thinking they would fill the emptiness inside him. But what he had failed to realize was that true fulfillment didn't come from riches. It came from connection, from giving, and from being part of something real. One afternoon, as Michael sat with Abigail in the kitchen, a quiet conversation turned into something more. Abigail, with her tired eyes and weathered hands, shared her life story with him. She spoke of the struggles she had faced as a single mother, of how hard it had been to raise Emma on her own while working long hours just to keep food on the table. "You know," she said, her voice soft. "I never thought I would get this far. Every day felt like a battle, just trying to survive. But Emma, she's always been my reason for pushing forward." Michael listened intently, moved by her strength and resilience. He realized that, like so many,